Captain Elias Kane stared at the view before him and felt a mix of awe and unease. The planet Zerith stretched out beneath his ship like nothing he had ever seen. Towering crystal spires reflected the light of a nearby sun. Floating islands drifted lazily through the sky, and rivers of liquid light wound across the surface. Zerith was beautiful, but it was also strange, alien in a way that made Kane's heart race. He had traveled across countless star systems, but this world felt alive, as if it watched him from every corner. He adjusted his helmet and checked the control panel. Everything seemed stable. The landing coordinates had been verified by the exploration team months ago. But nothing could have prepared him for the reality. His mission was clear: establish peaceful contact, gather information about the planet and its people, and return safely. But now, standing on the edge of the landing platform, Kane realized that peaceful contact might be more complicated than he had imagined. The landing was smooth, almost eerily so. As the craft touched down, the engines hummed and slowly powered down. Kane stepped out, his boots clinking softly on the polished surface. The air was breathable, surprisingly warm, and carried a faint, sweet scent he could not identify. The ground beneath him felt solid yet slightly springy, as if it were alive. He had read reports about Zerith's unusual geology and its strange bioluminescent flora, but experiencing it firsthand was different. A group of beings approached him. They were tall, taller than most humans, with smooth, pale skin that shimmered faintly under the sunlight. Their eyes were large, deep, and intelligent, filled with a calm confidence. Kane felt a shiver of anticipation. These were the rulers of the planet, the ones his mission had prepared him to meet. At the front of the group was Lysera. Kane had seen images of her before the mission, sent by the Galactic Council to prepare explorers. She was young, only 25 by human standards, but her presence was commanding. Her posture was straight, her gaze sharp, and the slightest tilt of her head suggested amusement, curiosity, and challenge all at once. She was the Queen of Zerith, and she knew it. "Welcome, human," Lysera said, her voice clear, melodic, and slightly mocking. "I am Lysera, Queen of Zerith. You have traveled far to reach my world. How? Brave, or perhaps foolish?" Kane kept his expression neutral. He had trained for diplomatic encounters, for situations where he might be mocked, tested, or even threatened. Lysera's tone was playful but edged with power. He had to be careful. "I am Captain Elias Kane," he replied steadily. "I come in peace, representing humanity. My mission is exploration and knowledge. I seek no conflict with your people." Lysera's eyes sparkled with amusement. "Peace," she repeated, almost like tasting the word. "Humans often claim peace, and yet, history shows, you are quick to conquer, to take, to fight. Can a human truly offer peace?" Kane swallowed but did not falter. "Peace is not weakness," he said. "It is choice. Humanity has learned, in its own way, that cooperation and understanding often lead to stronger outcomes than conflict." Lysera tilted her head, studying him. "Interesting. You speak boldly for one who stands before a Queen of Zerith. Most would tremble. But you do not seem afraid." "I do not fear what I cannot understand," Kane said. "I am cautious, yes, but fear does not guide my actions." A ripple of laughter passed through Lysera's attendants. The Queen's smile widened, faintly mocking. "Cautious, yes. Brave, perhaps. Or foolish. We shall see which it is." She motioned to her court, and Kane was led through the floating city. The streets shimmered with lights embedded in the ground, and the buildings seemed to defy gravity. Citizens moved gracefully, gliding across platforms, their movements elegant and precise. Kane noticed the technology around him advanced, yet unlike anything humans had developed. Vehicles hovered silently, devices manipulated energy and matter with ease. It was a world of elegance and precision, a society clearly far ahead in some ways. Yet, As Kane walked among them, he felt something familiar. These beings were intelligent, yes, but their emotions, their humor, their pride, they mirrored human traits in strange, alien forms. It gave him hope. If they could be understood, perhaps dialogue was possible. Finally, Kane was brought before Lysera's throne room. It was vast, with ceilings that seemed to touch the sky, walls glowing faintly with energy, and a view of the city that took his breath away. Lysera sat at the center, regal and unyielding, her posture perfect. "You have traveled far, human," she said, her voice carrying easily across the chamber. "And yet, I wonder, do you truly understand where you are? The challenges you will face here? Or are you simply another foolish explorer, thinking your courage can protect you?" "I am aware of the risks," Kane replied. "But understanding comes from presence, not observation. I came here to learn, not to assume." Lysera leaned forward slightly, her expression a mixture of amusement and skepticism. "Bold words. But words are easy. Actions. Actions are what define a species. Let us see what your actions reveal, Captain Kane." Kane felt the weight of her gaze but did not shrink. He knew the first encounter was just the beginning. Lysera was testing him, not with weapons, but with intelligence, pride, and scrutiny. How he responded now could shape humanity's relationship with Zerith for decades. The Queen's attendants moved to show him to his quarters. Luxurious yet functional, equipped with technology beyond human imagination. Kane paused, looking back at Lysera, who had returned to her throne, watching him with an unreadable expression. A faint smirk lingered on her face, almost daring him to rise to the challenge she had set before him. Kane turned away, stepping into the room. He felt anticipation, excitement, and a hint of apprehension. He had arrived on Zerith, a world ruled by a young but formidable queen. She mocked him, yes, but that was only the first test. And Kane knew, deep in his heart, that humans had a way of exceeding expectations, even in the face of doubt. As the doors closed behind him, Kane allowed himself a small, determined smile. Whatever lay ahead, he was ready. Humanity had traveled far to reach the stars, and Captain Elias Kane would ensure that they would be remembered not as weak or foolish, but as clever, resilient, and capable of leaving a mark even on a world as extraordinary as Zerith. The morning sun filtered through the crystalline walls of Zerith's palace, casting rainbow-like patterns across Captain Elias Kane's quarters. He had barely slept, his mind racing with thoughts of the alien world and its young queen. Lysera's presence lingered in his memory, the smirk, the sharp gaze, the subtle mockery hidden in her polite words. Kane knew he had only just arrived, yet it felt as if the real test was about to begin. A soft chime echoed through the room. Kane stood, adjusting his uniform, and followed the sound to the hall where he was to meet Lysera. The throne room was already filled with members of her court, their expressions a mixture of curiosity and polite expectation. Kane's boots echoed lightly on the polished floor as he walked toward the queen. "Good morning, Captain Kane," Lysera said, her voice calm but carrying the same teasing edge as before. "Today, we will see how your mind serves you. Words are easy, as you said. Let us see how clever you truly are." She gestured to a large, circular table at the center of the room. On it were objects Kane did not recognize. Geometric shapes that seemed to float slightly above the surface, glowing symbols that changed every few seconds, and a small device that pulsed like a heartbeat. "This is the trial of wit," Lysera explained. "It is designed to test intelligence, creativity, and problem-solving. Many humans believe themselves clever. Let us see if it is true." Kane studied the objects carefully. The floating shapes rearranged themselves in patterns that shifted constantly. The glowing symbols seemed to form sequences that changed when observed directly. The small device responded to touch, vibrating softly as though alive. It was unlike any puzzle he had ever faced. Lysera watched him intently. "You may begin," she said. "But remember, Captain, the goal is not merely to solve the problem. It is to solve it in a way that demonstrates understanding. Quick thinking alone will not suffice. Kane took a deep breath and approached the table. He reached for one of the floating shapes, noting that it rotated smoothly under his fingers. He tried placing it in different positions, observing how the other shapes responded. Slowly, patterns emerged, sequences that repeated, hints of symmetry hidden in the apparent chaos. Minutes passed, and Kane worked steadily. He did not rush, but he did not hesitate either. Lysera's expression remained calm, though her eyes flickered with curiosity. She had expected confusion, perhaps fear, but Kane's focus was unshakable. Finally, Kane touched the small device at the center of the table. It responded with a pulse, and the symbols on the table stabilized, forming a perfect geometric arrangement. Kane stepped back, observing the pattern. It was complete. The trial of wit was solved not by brute force, but by careful observation, patience, and a willingness to understand the system rather than simply manipulate it. Lysera's lips curved into a faint smile. "Interesting," she said, her voice tinged with surprise. "Most humans would give up long before reaching this point. You persisted. You understood." Kane bowed slightly. "The goal is not to win the puzzle," he said. "The goal is to understand it. That is how humans solve problems, by observing, learning, and adapting." The Queen's attendants whispered among themselves, clearly impressed. Lysera's eyes, however, remained sharp, studying Kane closely. "Do not think this impresses me fully," she said. "Understanding one puzzle does not make a human clever in all things, but perhaps it is a beginning." The next challenge came quickly. Lysera led Kane to a different room, larger and darker, with walls that seemed to absorb light. In the center of the room stood a holographic display, projecting a complex map of the planet. Lights blinked across the surface, representing movement, energy flows, and resource distribution. "This is the trial of strategy," Lysera said. "You will see the current state of Zerith, and you will propose a plan to optimize the planet's energy distribution. You have 10 minutes. Kane studied the map. The system was intricate, with interdependent energy nodes and delicate balances that had to be maintained. He could see that one wrong move could cause cascading failures across entire regions. Most humans would have been overwhelmed, but Kane focused calmly. He identified key nodes where small adjustments could create large positive effects, rerouting energy to areas that were underpowered while preventing overloads. He explained his reasoning aloud, noting that some regions might require temporary sacrifice for long-term stability. Lysera listened, her arms crossed, a hint of amusement in her gaze. "You think like a human," she said finally. "You see patterns and trade-offs, risks and benefits. Most humans would only act, without thought. You plan," Kane nodded. "Planning is survival. Observation without action achieves nothing, but action without understanding can destroy everything." The Queen's eyes softened slightly, though she would not admit admiration. "Perhaps humans are not as simple as I expected," she murmured. "Perhaps your species has more to offer than I realized, but do not think you have earned my respect entirely. Trials are many, and challenges endless." By the end of the day, Kane had completed 3 trials: the trial of wit, the trial of strategy, and a final test of diplomacy. Each was designed to show human inferiority, according to Lysera's court. But Kane approached them with calm intelligence, patience, and ingenuity. His solutions were creative, often unconventional, but always effective. As he returned to his quarters, Kane reflected on the day. He had expected mockery, perhaps insult, maybe even danger. But instead, he had discovered something unexpected. The Queen's amusement was not cruelty. It was challenge. She wanted to see if humans could rise above expectation, if they could prove themselves through intelligence and courage. Lysera, meanwhile, watched from her throne. She had expected the human to falter, to fail, to confirm her assumptions. Instead, he had solved puzzles, proposed strategies, and demonstrated patience. Her amusement had turned to curiosity, her mockery tempered by fascination. This human was different, but she would not show it. Not fully. She would continue to mock, to challenge, to test. For what was a queen without trials, and what was a ruler without subjects who could surprise, even inspire, admiration? Cain lay in his quarters that night. The city glowing outside his window, floating islands drifting lazily above, and the lights of Zerith reflecting off crystal towers. He felt the weight of the queen's scrutiny, the expectations of her court, and the enormity of the task ahead. Humanity had reached a strange world, full of wonders and challenges, and Cain had proven one thing: humans were not so easily dismissed. He smiled to himself, thinking of the trials yet to come. If today had tested wit, tomorrow might test courage, morality, or resolve. But whatever came, Cain was ready. For the first time, he realized that this mission was not just about exploration or diplomacy. It was about showing the galaxy that humanity could adapt, survive, and even excel, no matter how alien the challenge. And somewhere deep within the palace, Lysera contemplated the human captain, a small, reluctant acknowledgement forming in her mind. He was clever, capable, and intriguing, but she would not admit that aloud. Not yet. The morning on Zerith began quietly, the floating cities bathed in soft golden light. Captain Elias Cain walked through the palace gardens, observing the glowing flora and listening to the gentle hum of alien energy that seemed to flow through the air. After a day of trials, he thought he had a moment of peace. But the calm was deceptive. Deep within the palace, Lysera's court was in subtle chaos. A group of rogue advisors, discontent with her rule, had begun plotting a coup. Their plan was precise: infiltrate the palace, disrupt communication, and seize control of Zerith's energy grid. They believed that without the Queen's control, the humans, especially Cain, would be powerless. What they did not anticipate was Cain's presence and his human resourcefulness. Cain was summoned urgently to Lysera's throne room. The attendants' faces were tense, and even the Queen's usual calm demeanor held a hint of concern. "Captain Cain," Lysera said, her voice controlled but sharper than usual. "It seems your skills will be needed sooner than expected. There is a problem. A shadow moves within our court, threatening the stability of Zerith. I need your assistance. I need your assistance." Cain nodded. "Tell me what you know." She motioned to the holographic map of the city. Lights blinked erratically across several districts. These areas indicate disruptions in the energy network. Someone is attempting to reroute power and create confusion. If they succeed, parts of the city could shut down completely, and our defenses will be compromised. Cain studied the map. "Do you suspect who is behind this?" Lysera's eyes narrowed. "I have my suspicions. Certain advisors are dissatisfied with my rule. They believe humans like you are a threat. They will act quickly, but not carefully. That is where your human cunning may be useful." Without hesitation, Cain accessed the energy grid's control panel. It was unlike any system he had encountered. Far more advanced than Earth's technology. Yet, the principles were similar. Observe patterns, identify weaknesses, and intervene strategically. He noted the nodes that had been tampered with and traced the disruptions to their source. "You will need to act carefully," Cain said. "If we shut them down abruptly, they may trigger further damage. We need a solution that stabilizes the network while isolating the rogue elements." Lysera observed him silently. "You speak boldly, human. Most would hesitate or panic, yet you remain calm." Cain worked quickly, using a combination of observation and improvisation. He rerouted power to maintain stability, created temporary feedback loops to confuse the saboteurs, and sent subtle alerts to loyal palace security. The rogue advisors attempted to adapt, but Cain's unconventional methods kept them off balance. Minutes felt like hours, but finally, Cain managed to stabilize the grid. The energy flow returned to normal, and the city's floating platforms and lights shimmered steadily once more. The saboteurs had failed in their initial attempt, but Cain knew they would not give up so easily. Lysera stepped forward. Her expression, a mixture of respect and annoyance. "You did not simply solve the problem," she said. "You anticipated, adapted, and countered. That is impressive. Humans are clever indeed." Cain shook his head. It was not cleverness alone. It was observation, patience, and understanding of the system. Any species could have done this if they approached it the same way. But many would panic, or act too quickly. The Queen's eyes lingered on him. She did not speak, but there was a faint acknowledgement in her gaze. She had underestimated humans before, and Cain had proven her wrong. Yet she would not let him feel the full measure of her approval. The rogue advisors were not finished. While Cain had secured the energy grid, a small group had infiltrated the palace itself. Moving toward Lysera's chambers, Cain detected their presence through security sensors and motion alerts, and he acted immediately. Using the layout of the palace to his advantage, he created diversions, guiding the intruders into isolated corridors where security forces could contain them without harming civilians. He moved quickly, yet cautiously. Every action had a consequence, and Cain understood that one misstep could cost lives. Using simple yet effective tactics, blocking pathways, redirecting energy fields, and predicting the intruders' movements, he cornered the saboteurs. They were forced to surrender without a direct confrontation. Lysera entered the hall where the saboteurs were held. Her posture was regal, her voice calm but carrying authority. "You humans," she said, almost softly, "have a way of turning chaos into order. Most species would fail in this situation. Yet, you succeeded." Cain shrugged modestly. "We adapt. That is what humans do. We learn, we observe, and we act. It is not always easy, but it works." The Queen studied him for a long moment. Her usual mockery was replaced by thoughtful consideration. "Perhaps I misjudged your species," she said quietly. "You are not merely clever, you are resilient, resourceful, and unpredictable." Cain felt a small sense of satisfaction. He had not come to Zerith to prove humans superior, but in the eyes of the Queen, he had done just that. The human spirit, he realized, often shone brightest under pressure, especially in situations where expectation underestimated capability. Lysera's court whispered among themselves, impressed by Cain's calm leadership and quick thinking. Some advisors who had doubted him now looked at the human with newfound respect. Even Lysera could not entirely hide her admiration, though her face remained composed. The city slowly returned to normal. Citizens resumed their routines, unaware of how close they had come to disruption. Cain, exhausted but alert, returned to Lysera's chambers. She regarded him with a mixture of amusement and challenge, the familiar spark of mockery returning. "You have done well today," she said. "You prevented disaster, but do not assume that future challenges will be so straightforward. Zerith is full of tests, and humans are still young in the ways of the galaxy. Will you endure what comes next?" Cain met her gaze calmly. "We will endure," he said. "Humans have faced far greater odds on Earth and beyond. Adaptation, courage, and persistence are what define us. We do not yield easily." Lysera's smirk returned, faint but noticeable. "Perhaps that is true. Perhaps there is more to your species than I allowed myself to believe. But do not grow too confident, Captain Cain. The galaxy is vast, and challenges will always rise." Cain nodded, his mind already planning for what might come next. He had proven his intelligence, his patience, and his courage, but he knew the trials were far from over. Lysera's tests were only the beginning, and the universe itself would pose challenges that required every ounce of human ingenuity. As he left the throne room, Cain felt a sense of purpose. Humanity had arrived on Zerith not merely as explorers but as capable allies and equals in unexpected ways. He had faced danger, outwitted cunning adversaries, and earned a measure of respect from a powerful alien queen. And yet, the journey was far from complete. Above the palace, floating islands drifted lazily in the sky, their lights shimmering like stars. Cain looked at them and thought of humanity's place in the galaxy. Small, yet resilient. Fragile, yet determined. He smiled faintly. The challenge was immense, but humans had a way of turning challenge into triumph. And somewhere in the quiet observation rooms of the palace, Lysera watched him leave, a small, reluctant acknowledgement forming in her mind. This human had survived her first true test, and she could not help but wonder what he would do next. The palace of Zerith was quiet that morning, a rare calm settling over its floating spires and glowing platforms. Captain Elias Cain walked through the corridors, reflecting on the trials he had faced. Wit, strategy, courage, he had demonstrated them all. Yet he sensed that a deeper challenge awaited. One that would test not his mind or reflexes, but his principles. Lysera summoned him to her private chambers. The doors opened, revealing a room filled with soft light and intricate designs. A place that spoke of both power and elegance. She was seated on a throne-like chair, her posture relaxed but commanding, her eyes fixed on Cain as he approached. "Captain Cain," she said, her voice calm yet carrying an edge of curiosity. "You have proven yourself in ways that few humans could. You have solved puzzles, outwitted threats, and even preserved my rule when others sought to undermine it. Few species earn such trust, and fewer still earn respect." Cain bowed slightly, careful to maintain the courtesy of a diplomat. "I only do what is necessary," he said. "My actions are not for praise, but for understanding and survival. Humanity believes in doing what must be done, not what is easy or convenient." Lysera studied him for a moment, her sharp gaze softening slightly. "And that is why I make you an offer, Captain. Stay here, with me, as an advisor. Work alongside me. Help shape the future of Zerith. You would have influence, resources, and power beyond what humans on Earth could dream of." Cain felt a momentary pause. The offer was tempting. From a human perspective, power was alluring. Advanced technology, access to knowledge, and a position at the side of a young, brilliant queen. Many humans would see such an opportunity as the pinnacle of achievement. Yet he also felt a weight in his chest. Humanity had sent him here not to serve an alien ruler, but to learn, to observe, and to represent his species with honor. To accept Lysera's offer could mean compromising that mission, placing human freedom beneath alien authority. "I appreciate your offer," Cain said carefully. "It is generous, and I do not take it lightly. But my mission is not to serve, nor to rule. Humanity seeks understanding, partnership, and knowledge, not submission." Lysera's eyes narrowed, her usual smirk returning, though it was tempered by curiosity. A human who refuses power out of principle, that is rare. Most would seize the opportunity without hesitation. "You surprise me," Cain continued, his voice steady. "Humans value freedom and independence. We learn, adapt, and cooperate, but we do not give up our agency for comfort or prestige. To accept your offer would be to compromise that." The queen leaned back, studying him in silence. For the first time, Cain saw her expression shift from mockery to contemplation. He realized she respected him, though she would never admit it fully. His refusal was not a slight, it was a demonstration of human integrity, something she had not expected. "You are stubborn," Lysera said finally, her tone a mixture of amusement and admiration. "And principled. A dangerous combination for a human, but perhaps that is why your species survives, even thrives, despite its limitations." Cain allowed himself a small smile. "We survive because we adapt, because we observe, because we choose to act with understanding. Power alone does not guarantee survival. Morality, cooperation, and intelligence do." The queen studied him for several long moments. She was known for her decisiveness, for her ability to command entire cities and civilizations. Yet, Kane's words made her pause. The human before her had shown courage, wit, and now conviction. He was not easily swayed. "Very well," Lysera said at last, her voice calm again. "You will not stay. You will leave, carrying your knowledge back to your people. But know this, Captain Kane. You have left an impression on Zerith. Many here now question their assumptions about humans. You have shown that your species is clever, resilient, and—" Kane nodded. "That is all I hope to accomplish. Understanding, respect, and the chance for peaceful cooperation. Humans do not seek dominance, they seek knowledge and mutual growth." Lysera's expression softened slightly, though she quickly replaced it with her usual composed gaze. "You have proven one thing today, human. Humans are unpredictable, even to those who think they understand the galaxy. That unpredictability is a strength, and it will serve your species well." "Arhi." As Kane turned to leave, Lysera's voice stopped him. "Captain," she said softly, almost reluctantly, "know that you are welcome here. Should you ever wish to return, the choice will remain yours." He paused, glancing back at her. "Thank you, Your Majesty. But the future of humanity must be shaped by humans. And we must make our own way, even in the stars." The journey back to his ship was quiet. Kane walked through the palace gardens one last time, taking in the glowing plants and shimmering pathways. He felt a sense of accomplishment, but also a weight of responsibility. Humanity had made contact with an advanced species, had demonstrated ingenuity, courage, and principles, and had earned respect. Yet the true work, sharing knowledge, preparing for the future, was still ahead. As he boarded his ship, Kane looked back at the palace, at the floating islands, at the city glowing under Zerith's sun. Lysera's words echoed in his mind. "Humans are unpredictable, a species of both fragility and resilience." He smiled faintly. Perhaps unpredictability was the greatest strength of all. Once aboard, he prepared for departure. The engines hummed as the ship lifted into the sky, leaving the alien city behind. Kane knew that humanity's mark on Zerith was subtle, but lasting. The Queen, her court, and perhaps the citizens themselves would remember the human who refused power, yet earned respect, who acted with courage and intelligence rather than ambition. Lysera watched from her throne as the ship ascended. She allowed herself a faint smile, a rare acknowledgement of admiration. The human had left, but his presence lingered. He had proven that humans were more than the alien galaxy often assumed. Clever, brave, principled, and capable of extraordinary choices. As Kane's ship disappeared into the sky, he felt a surge of hope. Humanity was young in the galaxy, but its spirit, resilience, and moral compass would ensure that it could thrive, even among the stars. Challenges would come, as they always did, but humans had a way of rising above expectation, of leaving a mark wherever they traveled. And for the first time, Kane realized that leaving Zerith was not an ending, it was the beginning. The trials, the lessons, the encounters with Lysera and her people had strengthened him, sharpened his understanding, and affirmed the values that humanity carried. He set a course for Earth, carrying knowledge, insight, and experience that would help humanity navigate the wider galaxy. And somewhere far behind him, on the glowing spires of Zerith, a young queen reflected on the human who had defied expectations, leaving her with a lesson she would not soon forget. The stars stretched endlessly before Captain Elias Kane as his ship left Zerith behind. The planet's floating cities and glowing towers shrank into the distance, yet their memory remained vivid in his mind. He had accomplished what he had set out to do: make contact, navigate challenges, and prove that humanity could be clever, resourceful, and principled. But more than that, he had learned lessons that would shape the future. In the quiet of the cockpit, Kane reflected on the events that had unfolded. Lysera, the young alien queen, had tested him at every turn. Wit, strategy, courage, and finally, moral principle. Each trial had pushed him to think not only as a human but as a representative of his species. And humanity had not disappointed. They had adapted, observed, and acted in ways that even the most advanced alien civilization had not expected. Cain thought of the trials, the puzzles that required patience and understanding, the strategic challenges that demanded foresight, and the threats that tested courage under pressure. Each situation had been dangerous in its own way, yet humans had a way of turning apparent weakness into strength. Where aliens relied on centuries of calculated tradition, humans relied on ingenuity, intuition, and an unyielding drive to survive and learn. Lysera's final offer had been tempting. A place by her side as an advisor, access to resources and knowledge beyond Earth's reach, even influence over an alien civilization. Many would have accepted, many would have stayed for comfort or power, but Cain had refused. Humanity's freedom and principles were not negotiable. That choice had defined him as a true representative of his species, one who valued integrity over advantage. As the ship moved farther into space, Cain activated the communication link to Earth. He began transmitting data, images of Zerith, records of its technology, observations of its people, and careful accounts of interactions with the Queen and her court. Every detail mattered. Humanity would learn not only about a new world, but also about itself, how it could approach alien civilizations with intelligence, courage, and respect. While maintaining independence, Cain's thoughts drifted to Lysera. The Queen had been a formidable ruler, sharp and commanding, her mockery masking admiration. He realized that she had not underestimated humanity entirely. Rather, she had expected humans to follow predictable patterns. Cain had shattered those expectations, demonstrating that human creativity and resilience were not to be dismissed. The experience left him hopeful that future interactions between species could be built on mutual respect, rather than fear or dominance. Back on Zerith, Lysera watched the stars where Cain's ship had disappeared. She did not speak aloud. Her court waited in quiet curiosity, sensing her unusual mood. The Queen's expression was thoughtful, her usual sharpness softened by reflection. She had mocked the human, tested him, and even found herself surprised by his actions. He had acted with intelligence, courage, and principle. And he had left, without seeking reward or power. Lysera allowed herself a rare acknowledgement. Humans were not simple, nor were they weak. They were unpredictable, resilient, and capable of extraordinary choices. The thought lingered in her mind as she returned to her duties. Cain had left an impression that would not fade, a lesson in humility and the potential of an alien species she had once regarded with doubt. Cain, meanwhile, reviewed the data he had collected. Zerith's technology, its energy systems, and its approach to governance fascinated him. But more important was the insight into the alien culture, their values, their fears, and their capacity for both challenge and respect. Humanity could learn from them, but not by imitation. Humans would take what they needed, adapt it, and grow stronger in their own way. That adaptability, that combination of observation, intelligence, and principle, was humanity's true strength. Hours turned into days as Cain navigated toward Earth. The journey was long, but his mind was active. He recorded messages for scientists, diplomats, and explorers, emphasizing lessons learned. Observation and understanding are more powerful than brute force. Courage combined with strategy can turn dangerous situations into opportunities. Principle and integrity are as vital as skill when dealing with other civilizations. Cain also included personal reflections, knowing that future explorers would benefit from his insights. "Do not underestimate the value of being human," he wrote. "We may be young among the stars, but our ingenuity, our resilience, and our principles ensure that we will be remembered. Other civilizations may mock or doubt us, but they will learn, as I have seen, that humans are capable of extraordinary choices." As Earth grew closer on the ship's sensors, Kane allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. The mission had succeeded. Humanity had made contact, demonstrated its abilities, and left a mark, not through conquest or domination, but through intelligence, courage, and integrity. Zerith would remember the human captain who faced their queen, solved her trials, and left without seeking reward. He thought again of Lysera. The young queen would continue to rule her world with skill and wisdom, yet she now carried a new understanding of humanity. Kane smiled faintly. In her eyes, humans were no longer just distant, unpredictable beings. They were clever, courageous, and principled allies, or at least worthy of respect. The ship entered Earth's atmosphere, the familiar blues and greens spreading below him. Kane felt a surge of pride and responsibility. Humanity had taken its first steps into a wider galaxy, not as conquerors, but as explorers and representatives of intelligence and integrity. The lessons of Zerith would guide them in future encounters, ensuring that humans could meet the universe with courage and understanding. When Kane landed, he was greeted by scientists and officials eager for his reports. He spoke calmly, clearly, and with purpose, sharing everything he had learned. His words were precise but inspiring. Humanity, he emphasized, was more than its technology or strength. It was its resilience, its creativity, and its moral compass that made it capable of standing among the stars. Days later, Kane reflected privately on the journey. The trials on Zerith, the encounters with Lysera, and the challenges he had faced would stay with him forever. He had seen the value of patience, the power of observation, and the importance of principle. Humanity had made contact with a remarkable civilization, and had done so without compromising its identity. In the far reaches of space, Lysera watched the skies where Kane's ship had disappeared. She allowed herself a small smile, a quiet acknowledgement of the human who had defied expectation, demonstrated courage and intelligence, and acted with principle. She had mocked him, tested him, and in doing so, had come to understand the strength of his species. The galaxy was vast, full of challenges and opportunities. Kane knew that humans were young in its expanses, yet capable of leaving a mark wherever they traveled. Their ingenuity, resilience, and unwavering principles would ensure that they were never underestimated. And so, as Kane prepared to report fully to Earth and share the knowledge of Zerith, he carried a sense of hope and determination. Humanity's journey into the stars had only begun, but the lessons learned on a distant, glowing world would guide them for generations. Humans were clever, courageous, and principled. And that, Kane knew, was enough to face any challenge the universe might bring. The stars stretched endlessly above, and for the first time in many days, Kane allowed himself to relax. Humanity had left its mark on Zerith, and in doing so, had proven to itself and to the galaxy that it was not a species to be underestimated. The adventure was far from over, but the future had never seemed brighter. And somewhere across the galaxy, a young alien queen remembered a human captain who had refused power, faced danger with courage, solved impossible puzzles, and left without looking back a human who had shown that the true strength of a species comes not from dominance, but from intelligence, principle, and heart.